Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of Coloring Outside the Box. And this week we are going to be talking about the sun moving into Virgo, my monthly star track forecast, which occurs always just before the sun moves from one sign to another. And coincidentally or synchronistically, this is one of many attempts to start this podcast, and which is very much reflective of what Virgo energy can be about. Is this process working for me? And up to this point, it hasn't been working for me as well as I might like. Anyway, the sign of Virgo gets a bad reputation. It's often described in very mundane and one-dimensional terms. Virgo has a powerful capacity to connect us to all facets of how our lives work. And so when you meet a Virgo and they ask a lot of questions and they want to know how things work, it's because it's hard for them to process life without knowing what all the moving parts are. So they seek to know for the purpose of applying their knowledge in a way that is fundamentally effective, not necessarily efficient. This is one of the words. Efficiency is one of the words that Virgos get hung with. And it is not necessarily the best word. I always use the word effective. So as the sun goes through Virgo, the focus is always on what is actually working in my life, and of course this will apply in different ways in different people's lives. And so I just want you to see the general overall point of view that it's time to take a look at what's working and what's not. Now, of course, we're in a space and a place where often we think nothing much is working, but that's not what we're going to be experiencing this particular month, because there's a strong emphasis on, synthesizing and bringing things down to their common denominator, which is another Virgo quality, so that it can be applied in a way that actually produces something of value. And that is because, of course, this might be the first time since the beginning of the year that we can actually feel there is stuff we can do that won't necessarily evaporate in the next 10 seconds. We do need to remember to be fluid, and we're going to talk about that just in a moment when I start talking about the full moon. And so again, this year, it really is about taking all of the experiences that we've had and finding ways to apply the knowledge that we have gained and the insights that we have gained. Because if we've been paying attention, then we know that, things have been shown to us. We've experienced things that have, pushed us in different directions, back and forth between positive and negative. Now, the interesting thing about it is Virgo is only really interested in what works. And so it's less about finding what's right or what's wrong. It's more about finding what works. So, and just remember, there's going to be an underlying feeling of optimism. It's going to come and go, but remember, it's there. And so when you feel those moments, please take time to acknowledge them. Because one of the challenges in Virgo is that if you start to accumulate all the things that you think are not working, you can get inundated in what seems like fruitless labor or fruitless attempts. So let's talk about the full moon. So the full moon is on September 1st, 2nd, and of course, whenever the sun is in Virgo and the moon is full in Pisces. So this is a very interesting time because we have some challenges around, what I call the what if energy, the awfulizing energy. Isn't this terrible? Because Virgo is all about practicality, and if things aren't working, it can get, we can feel overwhelmed by the fact that things are not working. Versus, the challenging side of the Pisces energy, which is pie in the sky, bury your head in the sand, and avoidance. So those are the negative qualities. And let's face it, we're all going to feel, we have the potential to feel both of those ends of the spectrum. However, the more positive expression of this particular full moon is, being grounded, finding a practical reality that also includes the capacity to see the bigger picture. Being grounded in what it is we can rely on, what it is we have built, but also being open to seeing a vision or an opportunity that is way outside the realm of possibilities. So this is a good time to remember to listen to your intuition. Sometimes we can feel, Virgo can be the practical, Pisces can be called the spiritual, the intuitive, the psychic. And we have to remember that even though sometimes things feel like they're at opposite ends of the spectrum, that in other words, they're polarized, the key for we humans is to find a way to integrate them and work with them together. Now, this particular full moon also has a strong, really a strong psychic aspect to it, and a nurturing aspect. So it's important to remember to take care of self. And sometimes in this particular instance, it means being open to any crazy ideas that seem, or insights or awarenesses that just seem way out in left field, and they can't possibly be real, because of course the Sun in Virgo will say, well, that's not very practical. But remember that whatever comes during this full moon is meant to bring that integration of practical versus creative, imaginative, dreamy stuff. Okay, so let's move on to the new moon. So the new moon, which happens, now I can't remember exactly when, and I wrote it down, and now I don't remember. So let me look over here at my piece of paper. So yeah, the new moon is September the 17th. So what is this new moon going to bring us? Well, it is an opportunity. Of course, the new moon has a flavor of the intuitive to it. So again, we're going to see that interplay that I just talked about once again. However, there's a very strong earth component to this month's energy. And so again, for the first time in months, we might feel a little bit more grounded than we have for quite a long time. So what does that mean to be grounded? Well, you're going to feel like your feet are actually firmly planted on the earth, and you're not going to find yourself floating in space. That you can actually begin to implement things, whatever those things are. Because when we have a lot of earth energy, as we do this month, this is the time to begin to take practical action. And practical action that is in service of who you are, not action that necessarily detracts from creating a more grounded environment for yourself. Okay, so now just before I move on to Twinkles, I wanted to say that there are a couple of major events this month. Now, Mars moved into the sign of Aries, which is his home, his happy space, his happy place, and on June the 27th. And he's going to be wandering around in Aries until January the 6th. So we have a 6-month period or a little more of this go, go, go energy. Mars in Aries is impulsive, impetuous, and highly initiative. So we've been feeling since the end of June, we got to do something. We got to take some action. We got to make things happen. Well, on September the 5th, I believe, it goes retrograde. So now you know that Mercury is not the only planet that goes retrograde. So what does that mean? Well, it's an opportunity to, I want to say reload your gun, but that's not probably the best thing I could say. It's an opportunity to stop, and especially since Mars is going retrograde at almost the very end of the sign, which means that there's this forward momentum, and you're going to feel like all of a sudden, oops, have to put the brakes on. And you might wonder why. Well, first of all, you need to apply the brakes, and you can wonder why after you've put on the brakes. It's just a sign that something needs to be revisited, that any actions that you've taken in the last 2 or 3 months, you'll have an opportunity to rethink them, recalibrate them, one of my favorite words. So there's that. At the same time, or shortly thereafter, Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion and in traditional astrology is called the greater benefic. In other words, luck is a lady, is often something assigned to Jupiter, luck. But wisdom is also one of the things that Jupiter brings. And he's been in Capricorn all of this year. And he's about to shift his attention and start to move forward again. So we have an opportunity, lots of opportunities this year. We might not like them very much, but they're there. We might not feel there are any opportunities. We may feel that we've been dealt a difficult hand, and I wouldn't argue with you about that. It's more a case always, and this is where the Virgo energy comes in. What do you do with what you got? And as Jupiter moves forward in Capricorn, we're going to feel like we're more able to do that. So let's move on to twinkles. So there's a really lovely, warm, fuzzy energy as we move into Virgo. It's a carryover from the last few days. And the moon and Venus are hanging out together, bringing us a sense of that things maybe aren't so bad. That maybe along with the Virgo energy, and Venus is in a lovely aspect to that Sun in Virgo. What does that mean? They have they're talking well to each other. They're having a lovely conversation, and that conversation is, I am ready to apply, my feelings, the things I have pulled towards me. Like Venus in Cancer is often about, what in my life sometimes it could be, what in my life do I want to hold on to, but what in my life brings me happiness and joy. And so there's this feeling that, we may have come through the worst. Now, please don't jump to the conclusion that I'm saying that we have come through the worst, because quite frankly, I don't think we know just yet. However, we can come to the conclusion that life isn't all challenge and difficulty and potential disaster. That somehow we still have what it takes to carry on. So also part of this is, just this free-floating feeling that, and it can feel like, pie in the sky, again, kind of connected to the full moon we were talking about. And it really is okay to begin to fantasize, to dream, sometimes that is a great way to alleviate internal stress, as long as you understand that, what you're imagining right now, it's not time for it to come to fruition. That, we're being given a glimpse. It's like looking through the window in a candy store. We can see the potential exists for lovely, beautiful things. We're just not quite there yet. And then as Venus journeys through the zodiac during the time that the sun is in Virgo, the Venus is going to move into Leo. And when it does that, again, our heart, again, we're going to feel that we're going to feel happy. Now, it may be transitory, it might not last very long, but when you have those moments, please take time to just sit with them, to enjoy those things in life in that moment that are giving you pleasure, because part of what this whole process we've been going through this year has been about defining what actually the foundation of our lives are about from an internal perspective, from a place of what do I value? Not from a place of what does the rest of the world value, but from a place of what do I value? Okay, so just gonna pass this over here. So make time for those sudden insights, because you're gonna get a number of them this month. Just things popping in, don't seem to have anything to do with anything else that you're doing. If they feel, just pay attention to what your body is telling you. If it feels important to you, write it down. Especially if you're like me and your memory doesn't work as well as it used to. So what are the black holes this month? Well, I wrote down the battle between what was and what is continues. So again, we're going to still be dealing with the why isn't the world the way that it used to be? And that's an ongoing theme. And I think that if you find yourself in those spaces and places, don't be hard on yourself. Don't be self-critical. That's the other challenge that we face when Sun is in Virgo. It can be a lot of, well, I could have done this, I should have done that. That is not the positive application of Virgo energy. The positive application of Virgo energy, once again, is to take what is and be in the moment and take the steps necessary to deal with what is immediately on your plate. It's really hard right now to accept the fact that trying to plan for the future may or may not work. For instance, when I started this podcast structure, I was going to do it every week. That's Saturn talking. And then I realized that I'd boxed myself into a corner. And a friend actually reminded me that the name of this podcast is Coloring Outside the Box. So I made a box for myself and decided that the box didn't work. And that's a lot about what this year is about. So while the sun is in Virgo, it's okay to know what you need to do in the moment to take care of business. It's just, try, because that's going to give you the roots to going forward, being able to respond in the moment, as opposed to getting into a battle with yourself about why aren't things the way they used to be, because whatever the reasons are, they are for you. Virgo allows us to take some of the, or all of the experiences that we've been having and begin to formulate a new approach. Also understanding, oh, I know how to respond in the moment and do what needs to be done to make this work better, which is very much a Virgo quality. Because Virgo is the most fluid of the earth signs. Not that earth signs are necessarily fluid, but it is, perhaps, let's use the word adaptable instead of fluid, because fluid doesn't really work very well. So be kind to yourself, because it's in those moments that solutions to whatever is presenting itself will come to you. Virgo really is about adaptability, and in order to adapt, you have to be open. So this year has been a lot about what as I said before, discovering what works for you in the foundation of your life and what doesn't work for you, and being okay with letting go of what doesn't work. Now that means that something might have been extremely valuable to you at one point in your life, but maybe it is no longer valuable to you because it has served its purpose. And that's another quality of Virgo in my mind. It's very purpose oriented. Now, it could be argued that all the earth signs are about that. They are to some degree, but I find that Virgo has this powerful need to know what the purpose of something is so that it can make it work more effectively. And seems to intrinsically know that until it figures that out, it can't figure out a way to make things work more effectively. Little itchy nose. And this brings us finally to deep space. So it's funny because this month, deep space is not so much about going inward as it is about using what's been revealed to you from a deeper place over the last several months and actually applying it. Now, as humans, we tend to think, once again, we're back to that Virgo Pisces polarity, that going inward doesn't accomplish anything. And that's simply not true, because all of the things that inspire us and move us in a particular direction, our callings, whatever, come from within. And it's interesting because the Pisces Virgo polarity says a lot about how do you bring those things together so that it's not just an awareness that finds no outlet. So when they're working well together, the Pisces Virgo polarity, you have insights, you have awareness, you have things that come from within that may seem fantastical. And then the Virgo part goes, well, yeah, I think I could do something with that. And that is the power and the beauty of that. So this month, when we're doing deep space, which is my way of calling upon people to look at their lives from the inside, not necessarily the outside, we're going to get some aha moments where we get a sense of, oh, well, I've been feeling this, or, some things have popped up and made themselves known to me. And now I see how I can use that. At first, I wasn't sure how I could use that. So, it's interesting because during this period of time, we have an opportunity to figure out how to use all the things that have happened since the beginning of this year, since the world turned on its ear, and everything that we thought we knew and everything we thought we could depend on seemed to evaporate overnight. And we're going to discover that they didn't evaporate. We just need to rework them and transform them into something that we feel is more, more useful. And not just in terms of practical terms, but emotional, spiritual, and intellectual terms. It's a big ask, it really is. And this is just the beginning. But this month offers us a powerful opportunity to finally feel like we're standing on firm ground. And we're going to know that that sense comes from all the work that we've done on an inner level. So that brings to a close my monthly Star Trek forecast. And thanks again for joining me. I'm actually going to be doing 2 podcasts this week. I meant to do one last week, and time with my grandchildren kind of just took over everything, my granddaughters in particular. And so just as a teaser, the time I spent with my granddaughters ended up showing me what I needed to share with you. what stories I needed to share with you in podcast number 2 for this week. Anyways, thank you again for hanging out with me and sharing, well, at least listening to me share the upcoming forecast. Take care. Much love. Ta-ta for now. Sorry for the faces. Bye-bye.